Unlock the secrets, learn new tactics, and build a winning strategy to win the aging game. Welcome to the Aging Game with Bruce and Susan.
Welcome to the Aging Game with Bruce and Susan. It's a pleasure to have you all here. We have a great topic today about finding your destination. So, Susan, you want to, maybe we'll kind of talk about, like, what have you been up to? What's been new in your life?
Well, my gosh, it's been an exciting week since we launched our first episode last week. So I love the feedback we're getting. I love the questions we're hearing, and I've been loving the engagement we're getting. So I'm very excited about that. Personally, I enjoyed the farmers market last week, and I did make it to the Taste of Tropics at the Botanical Garden, and I always love that every year. So that was super fun. How about you? What have you been up to?
So, been busy with work.
Yeah.
And so I haven't had a lot of free time, but we did go boating over the weekend, and just the water was gorgeous. And so it was so nice just being out there on the water. But and I play a little tennis, and so but trying to do a little bit of work-life balance.
I love it. All right, well, let's get into it today. So you know me and my statistics, but I heard today you brought some good ones with you. So what have you got?
I'm ready, Susan. So interesting that there are two states that are the top retirement destinations. And what are those? Arizona and Florida. So it's kind of an interesting statistic that, and I don't think it surprises people. If you go to Publix, I think you see it happen in this area. And again, I used to work out in Arizona, and it's definitely the destination out there too. And you know, it's so funny because if you're out there, people talk about the dry heat, and you talk about Florida, and they talk about mosquitoes and how bad they are, and so it's just everybody kind of disses the other places, but they're both great places. Another statistic: 33.6% of Collier County residents are over the age of 65. So I think it's higher than that, but I guess that's the statistic. So 33.6, 22.4 of Lee County residents are over the age of 65. That probably doesn't count during seasonal people.
I think this is all registered residents, but yeah, we're not accounting for our seasonal people that come down. So these numbers got to be double.
I would think so. There's a total of in our area. There's a total of 320,000 people over the age of 65 in our area, and they're all at Publix.
Yeah, they are all at Publix, aren't they?
So
wow.
But you know, it is. These are interesting statistics. And there's another one. I think it's 58% of the women single are widowed women. So kind of another interesting statistic.
Wow. And I definitely think it's totally worth noting that these are not including our seasonal intake numbers. You know, we go through the roof. We can see that on Immokalee Road every year in 41. Well, our topic today being Find Your Destination, I wanted to share a story. So I met a gentleman. He's a doctor, and his wife are a doctor. They were both OBGYNs, and I absolutely adore them. And it's always so fun. Every time I hang out with them, he always tells me a great business strategy that I should do. So the other day we were chatting, and he says to me, my gosh, before I met you, I didn't even know home care existed. And I'm like, wait, you're a doctor? You live here? Whatnot? And so he goes on to share with me that he lives in a community, and he is very happy there. His wife is getting state-of-the-art care. It's engaging, and he truly is happy. But what he really misses is sitting on his lanai, having a cigar, grilling on his barbecue, and that's just something he can't have. And he's lived at this community now for about 5 years, and he says, the first couple years, that was a really difficult hurdle for him to get over. And the only option he thought was out there for him was going to a community. And so as, we, meet, he's like, wow, home care. He's like, I could have had that and maybe stayed home a few more years before we transitioned. And it really struck me home because we do meet a lot of people that they don't know what the options are out there as they're aging. they think that it's, this is the option or that is the option. And, there really is no one size fits all. I want to achieve, with our podcast, that everybody's understanding all the options that are out there and choosing what's working best for them. Maybe that's staying at home a little longer and then a community. Maybe that's a community. Maybe that's a community plus one-on-one care. Maybe it's a cruise ship. Maybe it's living with family. But, knowing really what your options are out there can help you make the best decision. And I guess for him, I would have loved that maybe he had that knowledge sooner and he could have made like a win-win decision. So maybe he would have stayed home a little longer and then moved to where he is. Yeah. But we can't go back in time. But what we can do is take stories like his, share them, and then share all of the options that are out there so that people really can start thinking about that sooner. So that's my little story for today, I guess.
Well, as a barbecue guy, I would have a really hard time not having a grill. So I would have I would have to find a place that I could bring my grill.
Yeah, that's a must for you because we know your barbecue is A+.
Yes. So, I think when we talk about it's a good story, and actually I think I know this guy. So, it's an interesting story, and, we need to talk about the options. And so there are, there are a lot of different types of options out there. And so the first being your home, and so, thinking about your home, can you sustain yourself in your home as you get older? So that's the big question. So, when you go home at night and, you look around your home, can you age in place in your own home? And I'm not sure if I really like that expression, age in place.
When experience matters the most, Senior Housing Solutions uses over 30 years of industry knowledge to provide expert advice for those considering a move to a senior living community. We are the matchmakers of senior housing. Call today at 239-595-0207 for your free consultation.
But I had a couple, and I went to their home, and the guy, they have a 2-story home, and the bedroom was upstairs. And when I met him, he was sitting on the lanai, and he could barely walk to the table where we were sitting. And, and so can they, maybe that house isn't the right house for them. Maybe they need to think about a 1-story home. If living in the home is the right answer, then maybe it's time to think about, is the physical structure safe enough for that person? Can they age in place? So thinking about your home and thinking about all that, is that the right answer? There are times where people live in, they have family that's nearby, and they enjoy their home, they enjoy their neighbors. I know we talked about my mom, and my mom, again, even though this is what I do, I couldn't get my mom to move anywhere. But my mom had great neighbors, and she loved the neighborhood, the sense of community where she lived, and she would walk her dog, and they would all talk about talk about everything, and so that was important to my mom, that her neighbors and the feeling of that community. So you gotta think about that.
I think you're. Sorry, I hate to cut you. I loved your question, though. I think I want to kind of go back and really highlight it. Asking yourself, and I hate that term, aging in place too, right? But when you're thinking about location or destination or where you're going to go, the first question needs to be, and it's a tough one, can I age safely in my current home situation? Like, I think as you dive into all things destination, that's the question to almost ask against every option, right? Because is your home safe? Is the 2-story? Is the location right? What, is the bathroom safe for you? Is the kitchen? Different things. I think, as we dig into all the different aspects of location, that right there is that highlight question for me. Like, that was like light bulb of, let's ask that against everything. Is my home safe for me to age in as is? Or do I need to explore a different option? I love that.
Very important. And, so I think that's a big, important question. I think, You have to figure out what amenities are important to you. Are you a pickleball player? You want a place that has tennis and golf, or offers art studios and sophisticated types of programming, and so you got to think about what amenities are important to you. Do you want different dining venues? Do you want a pool? Covered parking? And so again, you got to make that list and think about what's important to you. We talked about this in the previous episode about location, but there's different, even in Naples. Do you want North Naples? Do you want Central Naples? Do you want East Naples? Do you want Fort Myers? So you got to think about location and kind of narrow that down. And I would say that needs to be high on the list, because why look at places in the East Naples that maybe you really want to be in North Naples. Interesting. People come to me and they say, tell me about places up in Fort Myers and Lee County, because I think it's less expensive. And I probably shouldn't be saying this on the podcast, but there are better places, senior housing communities, that are in Collier County, and they are less expensive than Lee County. So a lot of people think so it's the complete opposite of what people think. And so, I think having this conversation about the options, and you may not know the options, what exists out there. And so tapping into, an advisor like myself that, this is what we do. This is what this is my knowledge base about, what options are out there, what's the cost and what you can afford. And so I think that's, definitely something that's important to recognize, and something you should do. And I'm sure you hear this as well. Sometimes people say, well, we have this cabana room in our home, and we're just going to hire somebody to live in our cabana home and take care of us. And, it sounds good, but, how realistic is that? And who is this person? Then they can just they don't have a life, and they can just move into your home, and, they do you trust this person? Is this person licensed? Is this person bonded? Does this person have a boyfriend or a spouse or kids? And so you're just asking for things to go south very quickly. So Susan, you asked me this in the previous episode, and so I wanted to ask you, because I think it's only fair. What is it, something today about finding your destination that you wish you knew sooner in your life or in your career?
Definitely to truly understand the options that are out there, that you need to want to decide where you want to age, as in location, like state, city, area. Like, I think that's step one. That's so important. And those were things I didn't think about at a younger age, certainly not for myself, certainly not for my parents. But I had moved down to Florida, and my parents were still in Michigan, and then they moved a little closer to North Carolina. And then finally they moved a little closer, and they're in Bradenton, which they still need one more step down here to Naples. But I think that aspect of location and destination is really step one in that difficult conversation, because before you can determine home care or facility or combo of care, whatever, you really need to determine where you want to be.
That's great. And I think it's such an important question that you need to talk to yourself or to your parents about, because, there's implications of that answer, and so if your folks move down from Bradenton and come down here to be close to their daughter Susan, well, how does that impact your life? And is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? And
fair question. Definitely. You're right. Family involvement in care. What is that expectation on both ends? Are the family moving closer thinking I'm going to be more involved? Is that day to day? There's definitely a lot of questions there. I think it really sets the tone for your plan. I see this so often with adult children. this is what they're experiencing, is where is that physical location going to be? Because then, it really does drive how will that work? It cost, services, quality, family involvement in care. What are the medical providers in that area? Do you have something specialized and there's a great specialist in that area, or are all of your great doctors up in Bradenton and it doesn't make sense to come down here? I think physical location is such a important part, and it really truly is step one in that situation.
I completely agree, and again, it's just not the idea of moving close to your family. It's what are the implications of that, and so like I said with my mom, I was the caregiver. I was local, and we couldn't take long trips, and I had to be on call 24/7. So there's implications of being close to your family. There are times where I talk to people and they say my sons are up in Michigan and they have their lives and their kids are graduating and going to school and doing all this, and they don't have time for all that. But I do think especially when you start getting into care, people who have family involvement, I would say they probably get better care. And so I think it's important to think about that. And long term, can your family oversee your care? Maybe, could be virtually, but, I do think it's important that your family's involved. So
you need an advocate.
You do.
I think, there's so many things that I could preach to as to why you need an advocate, from what's the average amount of time you're really in front of your MD during an appointment, to your medications or this or that, or overseeing your care, making sure it's meeting your needs when you go to the hospital. I definitely think and always encourage family to be involved. If for one reason or another they can't, getting someone that can function as an advocate is important. Diving into the world of senior communities, it's so complex. My mother refuses to stay in her home when the time comes from her. She's hell-bent on going to a community. And, I have some knowledge, but, it is complex. So can you kind of just touch on the differences between like independent, assisted, memory, give our listeners kind of like, the layman's terms of all that?
Sure. And there's a lot of confusion about independent living and assisted living. And so independent living, there are independent senior living communities that, you have your residence, your apartment, and it's your apartment. You come and go as you please. You bring your car, you furnish it. You can have people stay with you and spend the night. And so it's independent living, which means you are independent. And so these communities, they may provide amenities and services such as dining and housekeeping and transportation, social programming. But the assumption is that you are independent and that you don't really need assistance. And so then assistance, and again, there's a lot of confusion about assisted living. Assisted living is actually prescribed by your doctor. Your doctor fills out a form called an 1823 and outlines what care needs you specifically need. And so if you need help making sure you don't fall in the shower, or you may or help manage your medications, or help transferring from your bed to a wheelchair or to a walker, that's assisted living. And so again, there's a lot of times people confuse the two between independent and assisted, but assisted is a prescribed environment where you are receiving assistance. And in the state of Florida, there's different types of licenses. There's a standard license. There's what we call an ECC license, and we'll talk about that later. 3 meals a day are provided, so you're not going to have a large kitchen in assisted living, but in independent, you're going to have a full kitchen and a washer and dryer. And so it's just a different type of living environment. And we were talking about aging in place and how I don't like that term. I don't like the term assisted living because I think it has this negative, who wants assisted living? So it sounds negative, but that is what it is. And maybe we'll change the terminology someday. So there's also memory care. And so when people have cognitive decline or dementia or Alzheimer's or some type of memory issues, there are specific memory care types of facilities, and these are in a secured environment, and the staff specifically trained to help people who have some levels of dementia or Alzheimer's. And so if somebody is what we call an elopement risk or a wander risk, and they're walking out the front door and not having a clue where they are, that person probably needs more of a memory care environment. That's sort of the line in the sand as far as, do I need assisted living or do I need memory care? Or if the fire alarm is going off and you have no idea what the fire, what it is, maybe memory care is the better option. And so, that's memory care. There's what we call skilled nursing. And again, there's a lot of confusion about skilled nursing. And there's sort of two different components to skilled nursing. One is short-term, what we call rehab. So if someone's recovering from hip surgery or knee surgery, they have rehab, which is typically covered by Medicare. And so there's rehab skilled nursing facilities, and then there's long-term care. And so if somebody is bedridden and needs 24-hour nursing care, then that would be a long-term care or skilled nursing environment. So it kind of depends on what your health is like, and how, are you getting better or are you getting worse, or what we call plateauing, are you staying the same? So that would be skilled nursing. And it does get expensive, so we'll talk about that at some other point. And then you have what we call CCRCs, and there's a lot of acronyms in this industry, but CCRC, and when I was 30 years ago, when I was started in this business and I was overseeing a CCRC, I thought that stood for Country Club Retirement Communities. And these are the big players in town. And so actually CCRC stands for Continuing Care Retirement Community, even though you think it's Country Club Retirement Community, but it really is Continuing Care Retirement Community. And in these communities, you pay an initial entrance fee, a one-time entrance fee, which is pretty sizable. It's going to be $500,000 on up, and then you're going to be paying an ongoing monthly charge. But the deal with the CCRC is that you're moving into independent living, and there's a contract that says whenever you need care, we got you for the rest of your life. And so it's a contractual obligation, almost an insurance product that says we're going to take care of you for the rest of your life, no matter what your medical situation becomes or your financial situation becomes. So it's a huge commitment. When I say it's better to be 5 years too early than 5 minutes too late, a community that is going to be committed to you contractually to care for you for the rest of your life, you're going to bet your bottom dollar that they're going to be very careful who they accept on the front end. And unfortunately, there are times where people wait too long, even though they think they want to move into, this great CCRC because all their friends are there and they're all happy as ever. And they don't pass the medical. And so you definitely have to move into a CCRC at a much earlier point than probably what you're expecting. And so those are sort of the main types of senior housing options that we have.
Definitely a lot to unpack, and definitely reinforces why we need to have someone like you walking us through that.
So just to confuse the topic even further, since you're the expert on home care, why don't we talk about home care? Because there's a lot of confusion out there about home care.
Yeah, definitely. Home care has always been something that I think is just surrounded by misconceptions, whether it's people thinking Medicare will cover it, or we just take, grandma to the grocery store. So when we think about home care, there's really two paths of home care. There's Medicare, which is home health, and then there's private duty, which is home care. So a lot of people will say to me, does Medicare cover this? Or Medicare will cover this. Medicare is more for your short-term need. They're going to come in after, some sort of an event, and typically they have a 60-day certification period, And at the time of admission, they're really creating your discharge plan. So your plan of care is, for 60 days, and it's, we're going to do X, Y, and Z and graduate you to discharge at this point. They're not there for your long-term needs. They also don't do what they call custodial care, which is what we call personal care. So Medicare will, if they're providing a nurse or therapy, in some situations they can send a caregiver to do a bath visit or something of that nature. But again, it's very short, it's brief, it's not that long-term need. Whereas, what we do at Bright Star in the home care industry is much more personalized and tailored to your needs. So we can come in and we can grow with your care needs. So we can start with a little bit of care and we can grow as your needs change. We can come in and provide a lot of care and maybe you're improving after, maybe a procedure or something, and then you can decrease. But we're here to serve whatever your needs are today. We're going to meet you where you're at in the aging journey. We're going to provide services from transportation to personal care, so we can assist you with all of your activities of daily living. So bathing, dressing, toileting, transfers, ambulation, mobility, med reminders, meal prep. We can do light housekeeping. And some people are, they'll say, well, I'm not ready for assisting with bathing. And I always try to explain to them that assist has a wide definition. That can be from, we're just there present when you're doing that for safety. We can be a verbal cue, a setup, a partial assist, standby assist, total assist. So it's wide ranging. And then the great thing about Bright Star being that we're a skilled agency, we can also provide additional services through our skilled team. So with our nurses, we can do case management or care management, medication management. We can oversee all of your medications, fill your med boxes, ensure medication compliance and adherence, make sure that you're on the right medications, as well as we do physical and occupational therapy. We see a lot with seniors where physical therapy is a benefit to them, but Medicare will come in for a short period of time. We'll come and continue that after as kind of a maintenance thing. We also can provide medication administration. We do wound care. So that's the wonderful thing about us, is that we are so wide ranging that we can cover kind of A to Z, whatever your needs are. What I love about where we come together, Bright Star and Senior Housing Solutions, or if you want to think about it from the home care to a community aspect, is that we can provide transitional care. So when people move into a community, that can pose a ton of challenges. And we will come in and support that to ensure it's a successful move in, that you successfully assimilate to that community. And we can stay on short term while you're getting used to it, or we can stay on, long term. You had mentioned earlier, a great question is, what happens at 3 a.m. if there's an emergency? Well, maybe I don't want that guy that's going to pass out from blood, but maybe you bring in private duty and you have a caregiver at night. And during the day, you're relying on the facility staff, or you're more independent during the day at night. I love where we can bring our two industries together for a successful outcome for the client.
Susan, so can you talk more about the different types of home care? You have personal care, you have registries, and agency, because I think people don't know that. They think they can just hire Betty Sue from Publix to come and provide some home care for them. Or people are shopping price and they think, I'm just going to find the cheapest, and that could be a registry. And so, can you just touch on some of that, maybe the pros and cons of each and what all that means?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an important one. So in the home care industry, in the private duty side, there's hiring private staff. So you meet your neighbor and you want to hire her, or the girl at Publix. There's registries, and then there's private duty. So hiring an agency, which is what Bright Star is, we are our employees are our actual employees. We have a relationship with all of them. We onboard them. We have continuing education, continuing oversight. We cover their liability insurance, their workers' comp insurance. We cover all their taxes, their unemployment. So in that scenario, the client is fully protected. If anything goes wrong, the agency is liable to cover all of that. When you hire a registry, you're basically hiring a subcontractor. So they love to pose as agencies and sell the aspect. And if you don't know to ask, are you an agency? Are you a registry? No one's going to outright tell you I'm a registry. There's a couple key things you can look for. On all of our material has to be our license number. Agencies always start with 29999, and registries will always start with a 3. And that's a big flag. And then, you want to ask, with registries, essentially you're the employer. You're the one that is covering the risk. So the employees are supposed to have their own private liability insurance, but I see a lot of times they don't pay the premium and that's expired, and you might not know that. A big thing too is your typical homeowner's policy doesn't cover home care in the home. So you have to have a separate rider. And if that employee gets injured or they injure you, there's no protection for you. If you fire that person, I've seen caregivers sue for unemployment if they get injured on the job, medical costs. So really opening yourself to risk there. And then if you hire Betty Sue, who you don't know, my gosh, you're 100% everything. You're the employer. You're everything. If they don't show up, who are you calling? With an agency, we have hundreds of employees. So it's understanding the risk, and there's obviously cost. Private might be your cheapest, registries cheaper, agencies higher. But it's where's that? What's the priority? Is it quality? Is it safety? Is it oversight? Protecting your assets and understanding those complexities.
So important, and I said it earlier that things can go south very quickly, and you might find a nice person to come and help, and then all of a sudden she hurts her back, and she's going to sue you and take everything, and you're going to be up a creek. And so you gotta understand this early in the process, and again, do your due diligence and look at was it 2999 versus the 3, and
always look for the number. One thing I try to do when we do education in the community with professionals, specifically doctors, discharge planners, social workers, is encourage them to refer to an agency. There's so many sales reps and community people just bombarding these professionals out there, but as a client or a patient or a loved one, you need to advocate for yourself. You need to take that one step farther. And it's not always, don't always trust the person giving you the recommendations. Do your own due diligence, research, and make sure that you understand what is the risk you're taking, because that's not always what your discharge planner or your social worker is thinking about. They're thinking about, this person comes and tells me their services are great and they offer these great services and this is what you need, but they don't understand the background to it. So always be your own advocate, always ask the questions, and make sure that you're meeting your best need and understanding what that risk is. Saving $10 today might cost you $100,000 next month.
And since we're really big on being proactive, don't you encourage people to do their research now and not wait for this crisis? Because if you wait for this crisis to happen and then you're opening a phone book to say, who am I going to pick? Who's coming? Versus they could interview you all and they can get to know who you are. You can get to know who they are. You can get to know the little dog's little name and, all that. And have a little file created. So then all that's taken care of. Or, you can tell your children saying, this is the home health care company that I want to use, and here's their information. So
absolutely. We meet with clients all the time that are not signing up for services today.
right.
They're, interviewing us, wanting to get to know us, to know our services. And I encourage them to meet a couple companies and see what's out there and understand that. I have one lady who every year in October contacts me. Every year she wants to meet with us. We come out to the home and she signs us up for just in case something happens. Her husband has Parkinson's and she's, pretty healthy, pretty ambulatory, feels she can manage things on her own. But this past season, she actually fell, unfortunately broke her hip, had to go to the hospital and then rehab. And what was a blessing for her was that we already knew her. We already knew her husband. We had his med list, his plan of care. So when she called us on a Saturday at 10 p.m., we were ready to go. And that was such a relief for her in that crisis moment for her. So I encourage people to call us, talk to us. We'll come visit you at your home, go over that, interview companies, get to know them, and find the right fit that lines up with you and what you want and the company that's going to support you.
So I have a little story to share. So I was working with this couple. They live in Mediterra, and they had this little room set aside in their home, and they, their plan was they're going to age in place in their home. And so they had this, all set up, and they found this woman. I think she was from like Alabama, cute little girl. And, they hired her, and so he had a bad back, and she became really tight with him and a little too comfortable. And so I went over there, and it was like sugar pie this and honey buns that. And so she created this bubble, and she insulated herself. She knew where the money was coming from, and she knew she was going to be cared for. And so she created this bubble around him and got too close to the guy. And who were dealing with a couple in their 80s, and the wife was like, enough of this, I'm getting a divorce. And so now here's a couple that in their 80s getting a divorce, and this private duty caregiver created this she insulated herself, and there was a power of attorney that was changed in her name. And so things happen, and even though the best laid plans are out there, things happen. And you gotta protect yourself. And so not everybody's not as honest as you hope they are. And this was a pretty bad situation that occurred.
We hear things like that all the time. I think boundaries are important. If people, there's a fine line between, I want people to create that purposeful engagement, that relationship, but there needs to be professionalism at all times. We go out and do random pop-up visits. I have a team of ladies that are dedicated solely to ensuring that the client-caregiver relationship is appropriate, that the client is happy, that we're fulfilling the needs, and that boundaries are being followed. You hear that baby sugar, they get too close, and people are like, oh, she treats mom like mom. I love that. Correct. I love that too, but it has to be a professional relationship. And when you hire private and some of these other situations, you don't have that oversight, and I've seen some pretty scary stuff like that. So
I'm just curious, when people are talking to you and you're interviewing you, can they be very specific on who they want and the gender of that person? And
oh, absolutely. We spend a lot of time with our clients up front, doing what we call a life history. So we spend a lot of time learning about their likes and dislikes. What, I use this example a lot. I had a client who, I couldn't keep a caregiver there to save my life. And I would ask him, tell me what's going on. No, it's just, this isn't the right fit. This isn't the right fit. Okay. Finally, one day he says to me, I just want them to come in and take the trash out. And I said, my gosh, absolutely happy to do that. Can you tell me where the trash is? Because I don't see it in this immaculate home. It's not in any of the obvious spots, whatever. he has it completely built into this cabinet. It's beautiful. I said, absolutely happy to do that. No big deal. Now, me, if you came into my home and started rustling through all my cupboards and stuff, I would be a little off put. So I let him know, like, the caregivers just, they're coming in and they're just not rifling through your stuff. But he really wanted that bull in a china shop, right? Whereas that would be super off-putting to me.
Right.
So we've taken that, and that's a conversation we have with clients. You know, do you want the bull in the china shop? Do you want someone that's more subdued? Do you want someone that's going to push you or someone that's going to accept no? Do you want a chatty Cathy, or do you want someone that's quiet? Do you want them right with you, or do you want them over here? Understanding their expectations is so important, and how we build that in. Certainly gender is important with both male and female clients, what they're comfortable with. So much of personal care is personal, and we want to ensure that they're comfortable, that they're safe, and that they're respected. So all of that comes into it. You know, what are they looking to get out of care? And that's what we want to achieve. And, you know, we have what we call guaranteed compatibility. So I'll continue to go until I find that right match. But it does start with that initial conversation. And I encourage clients to be open. I would rather you tell me all of your, you know, demands or wishes up front than, you know, to be more reserved and not share that, and then kind of let us struggle as we find that right fit. Because when the information isn't provided to us, then we're basing it off of skill and schedule, right? But I want to go off of compatibility and successful match, but it's a two-way conversation. So being open, being honest, and I'm going to say it, having those difficult conversations up front are key to getting a successful match.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Great information. So I know you're a cruiser.
I am.
I know you like that. I'm not a big cruiser, but I know you are. And so, you know, this whole thing about, you know, can you retire on a cruise ship? You want to talk about that?
This is such a topic I'm obsessed with right now. So, excuse me. So yes, my husband and I love to cruise. We got married on a cruise. We go cruising all the time. And, you know, this started a couple years ago. During the pandemic, there's this guy, Super Mario, and he lives on Royal Caribbean ships. He just goes from ship to ship to ship to ship, and he's got a plaque, Super Mario, on all these ships, and he's living his best life on a ship. And then during the pandemic, when, you know, cruising halted and it resumed, you started to see people remotely working and living on ships and thinking, oh, this is the life, I'm going to retire. And I thought, it's a little irresponsible to say. I get it. It's fun. You've got a room steward, right? Someone to make your bed every day. You got the dining rooms and meals, and there's activities, and there's this. And then you think to yourself, and there's medics on here, but they're not equipped to deal with our aging needs. They're also not refilling our regular meds. So you're going to have to deal with that on port days. And if there really is a true medical situation, God forbid you fall and hurt yourself, or there's a decline, you have a stroke, you're going in the Coast Guard helicopter off the ship. And I don't know about you, I love cruising, I'm petrified of heights. I don't want to go in that basket. And I think it's a fun concept. I think it's exciting to think about, but I really do think it's unrealistic and it's irresponsible. But it is a growing trend right now, and it scares me. And I just want people to say, like, you got to stay on land. So, vacation, do that, but you can't live there forever.
So a couple things. My sister was in Mexico and tripped on a cobblestone road.
Ooh.
And broke her ankle, and, you know, they had to set it. And so they had to set it in Mexico, and it was, you know, it was bad. And so, you know, that's what you're susceptible to something like that, where, you know, the doctors may not be the doctor that you really want. They're talking about, you know, doctor, and it could be a third world country, and they got to do emergency surgery. And so that's a problem. I have researched this for people. And so I have had clients and say, Bruce, you know, this is what I want to do. But it does sound glamorous, you know, different ports and different people and dining, and you have, you know, new people coming on board all the time and a lot of adventure. But long term, it is, when you start needing care, it's a major problem. And I do know that some of these boats have big walk-in freezers if you don't make it.
Yeah.
But it's not, long term. It's not the solution, because when you start needing care, you're going to want to be in a better situation.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think people look at it and they budget it and they think they're getting bang for their buck, right? They're getting a vacation, they're getting beautiful sights and this. But I mean, whether it's, the medical standards in other countries are not the same as here. And that's definitely worth noting. I think that, in your early retirement, I'm sure it's fun. I know Super Mario loves it. I think he's such a delight. I've interacted with him on a couple cruises. He's so fun. But I think even he knows that, the day will come where that's not the practical solution. So it's an interesting trend. I love it just because it's cruising, and I obviously love cruising. But yeah, it's definitely not the solution. And I also wonder, so right now there's this 9-month around the world cruise. It's taking you to all the wonders of the world, and it's wonderful. And I just think to myself, could I do that? And I don't think I could. I think I would. I think it's exciting, but I think I would wear out soon.
Well, I think Riley and Ralph would miss you.
Yeah, I would definitely miss them. So it would definitely have to be a post Riley and Ralphie thing. But yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I love to see these different things kind of come out as to what people come up with, where they want to age. But I think this is one that's trending, and I think it's going to fall off once people realize the reality of it, or heavens forbid something happens.
So great information. And again, when we started off, we were talking about, the important questions about, can you sustain yourself, or can your parent sustain themselves in their home as they get older? And so that's the big question to ask. And, recognizing that, people don't live and die on the same schedule. One person's going to need care at a different time than the spouse. And how will all that impact each other and on your family? And so, thinking about that and talking about home care, talking about senior living options, these are, you got to have the quote, the talk, and it's important that you talk about it with your family.
Absolutely. I think, destination is definitely step one in creating your aging strategy. And I think we really covered a lot of content today. And I think we're giving everyone a great place to jump off creating their plan.
Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, providing exceptional in-home care. At Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, we believe that you and your loved ones deserve nothing but the best. Our team of highly trained nurses and caregivers are committed to delivering the highest standard of in-home care. We offer a wide range of both medical and non-medical services to cater to your specific needs. From companion care and personal care to skilled nursing and therapy services, our professional care team is here to meet your needs, both now and in the future. Bright Star Care is proud to provide the highest quality of care and prioritize in-home safety. We are accredited by the Joint Commission, and all care is overseen by a registered nurse. With Bright Star Care, you can have peace of mind knowing that your loved one is in the best hands. To learn more about Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, visit us online at brightstarcare.com or give us a call at 239-992-4779. We are available 24/7 to answer any questions you may have. Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, where exceptional care meets compassion. Locally owned and operated since 2006.
So, Susan, the last episode I shared my nugget of wisdom. So now is your time. What would you like to share? What's your nugget that you would like to share with everyone?
I think the most important thing for me is finding someone local that you trust and understanding and learning for them about all the options in your community, learning about the services and all of that. I think a lot of people, it's so easy. We have the phone. It's in our hands 24/7. And so many people just go to the internet. And ask a question and get an answer, right? Google just gives you an answer. And the one thing is that that's not always the best information. I think really finding that local expert, finding a local team of people to work with that you can really dig into and trust is what's important. I will say I'm guilty of this. I've used the Google in the past to look up things, and I realize now that that's just the last place I want to go for when I'm talking about my aging journey or when I'm talking about anything healthcare. I want to talk to the people in my community that know these things that can help me, not someone on the phone that's based somewhere else or the internet that's, going off of, reviews, and maybe everyone just gave a bad review because everyone tells 10 people when they hate something, but you don't tell 10 people when you love something. So I think being aware of that is great. And I think ensuring that you find people that respect your wishes, your wants, your desires, and help you achieve them in a realistic manner is 10 times more valuable than the Google.
And even with Google, you don't even know if you're talking to a person.
Oh.
It could be an AI right now. It could be a whole totally fake person out there, and pretty scary stuff. And so much better to know who you're talking to and talk local, boots on the ground knowledge for sure.
Absolutely. So what have we got coming up in the community this weekend? I know we've got some fun stuff.
There's a lot going on. So this Friday, there's the Edison and Ford Farmers Market from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The Naples Botanical Garden has a summer discounted rate for Lee and Collier residents. So if you haven't been to the Botanical Gardens, it's awesome. It's a nice time to go. And then, save the date. The Parkinson's Association of Southwest Florida, they have their annual Bags and Babbles event, bingo event on October 17th. So mark that down. That's going to be a lot of fun. Great cause, great organization. So got some fun things going on that you should be part of.
Yeah, that bingo event is one of my favorite events every year. So much fun. I've failed to ever win bingo yet, but who knows? Maybe this will be my year. Right. So definitely save the date for that one.
Definitely a cruising activity, bingo, right?
Yeah. I love bingo and I know how to work the dauber.
There you go.
So yeah, sounds like we've got some great events coming up. I'm definitely looking forward to it.
So me too.
Next week we have a great topic. Dollars and cents. So we're going to dive into money, all the different ways to pay and cover your aging needs. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media. You can also find more information and resources at www.theaginggamepodcast.com.